It is game day in Ann Arbor. Welcome to the Wolverine.com preview show. Clayton Sayfie here with Chris Balas. Go ahead and like the video on YouTube if you're watching. Hit the subscribe button or just follow along with us at the Wolverine.com as always. But it's a Big Ten season. Michigan against Rutgers opening things up here, 3:30 on ABC. Who would have thought an ABC game for Michigan and Rutgers, but we'll talk about Rutgers in a second, a program on the ascent a little bit in the Big Ten East. But, Chris, when you look back at big or non-conference play as we head into the Big Ten season, we didn't know a ton what to expect from this Michigan team. I think they've exceeded expectations, certainly. What is the one thing that has been the biggest pleasant surprise and the one thing that still concerns you as we head in?
That's hilarious. I just wrote this as my number one in a 3-2-1 column that's going up shortly. And the number one pleasant surprise is obviously and clearly the offensive line in the running game, right? We knew there was talent there. We didn't know that it would come together like this. As our Doug Skeen said, former Michigan offensive lineman, it takes time for those guys to gel and really know each other's nuances and things like that up front. Andrew Vistardis has been an absolute dominant force in the middle. At this point, he's got more to prove against bigger linemen, but this guy, talk about flipping a switch. And I think his back problems last year in the spring really kind of hindered him a little bit. But now you can see what Jim Harbaugh likes about him. This guy is as true blue as it gets, and he busts his ass. And I love that about him. And that has led the offensive line, which is playing extremely well together. Jim Harbaugh's fingerprints are all over this offense, and I like that, frankly. This is the first time where everybody said, Harbaugh's too involved, Harbaugh's too involved. Well, guess what? Now he really is involved, and you can tell. And I like it. So now it's going to have to be more diverse. They're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more, Clay, to beat the better teams on the schedule. But to me, that is where it starts. That's the pleasant surprise. As disappointments go, I really don't have any because the culture is so much better. The defense is so much better. Maybe a little bit of the tackling at times, right? Some of the secondary guys haven't wrapped up. It's been a little sloppy at times, but and we don't know about the interior defensive line yet. Some teams have gotten some yards in the middle of the line when they've gone with their two-down lineman look, with guys with their hands in the ground. But to me, that and I guess the passing game, if you want to get nitpicky, because they haven't had to throw. But I was hoping to see a little more play action, Clay, and a little more separation among the receivers, which is something that we haven't seen. Now, maybe they're saving that for the better teams on the schedule, and maybe they had that in the bag for Washington. We just didn't have to see it. But to me, that's where it starts and ends, and very anxious to see how this team does in Big Ten play.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because they've been so impressive through 3 games. I mean, it's one of the more impressive non-conference seasons I can remember, certainly under Jim Harbaugh. But there's still some question marks, how are they going to do when they have to throw it 30 times a game? And 30 is not even a huge number. That was my bold prediction earlier in the week on the message board. I just said, I think they're going to throw 25, 30 plus times. And somebody was like, that's crazy. And I was like, we're talking about college football in 2021. It shouldn't be that crazy. And, I think Rutgers is going to, sell out to stop the run a little bit, and we can talk about that in a second. But I agree with you. It's the offensive line as the, thing that I'm most impressed with through 3 games. And also a shout out to the running backs because, I thought they would be a very good position group. I think we did a point counterpoint in the magazine, and, the running backs, having to write about them, I was like, I think they're going to be good. I didn't think they were going to be this good. Hassan Haskins is his steady self. He's very good. If he was the bell cow back that was taking every single carry, I think he'd do fine. But he has a lightning to his thunder in Blake Corum, who has just taken a massive step forward. We can credit Mike Hart for a lot of that, but also credit these guys for the work they put in because Blake Corum puts in a hell of a lot of work. And then you have Donovan Edwards. If anything happens to one of the top 2, and we've seen him sprinkled in as well, and will continue to going forward. So, I think they're a huge piece of that running game, obviously. But, I'd love to see this team get tested, and we will see them get tested in the next few weeks here, defensive line-wise and all of that. But it's just been an outstanding start to this season. It's almost amazing because these coaches came in so late. When you're talking about hiring 6 new assistant coaches, to have a team kind of this ready hasn't always been the case. 2019, that they're going to overtime with Army and all that, but to have them have this look, considering Klink got here in the summer, Matt Weiss got here the day before spring ball, things like that, I think is pretty impressive, and it shows you just how serious Jim Harbaugh and these guys are about turning this thing around.
Yeah, Steve Klinkskill's been an absolute stud. You can
Yes,
see this
yes.
guy is such a great fit. Mike Hart and Ron Bellamy, we knew were going to be great fits. George Hilo, let's give a shout out to that guy and his linebacker play. I think I picked linebackers in the point counterpoint, and you picked running backs. I mean, we always go back and forth. Both those two position groups have been outstanding. And the linebackers, who would have thought? Josh Ross has been inconsistent. He was banged up, but he reshaped his body, and look at what he's done. Junior Colson's going to be an All-American here. I'll put that out there right now. And that's, I'm not saying first team All American, Butkus Award winner, but I'm saying that this guy is going to be on some All American teams because he is that good. And you kind of got a sense for that, right? When Jim Harbaugh was talking about him earlier in the week.
He
So
circled back
exciting.
because you asked about the linebackers for
Yes.
the people that weren't there.
Yep.
And of course, that starts with Josh Ross. So we talked about
Yep.
Josh Ross. And then I think right before he was about to leave the podium, after he got asked a ridiculous, silly question, he goes, "Oh yeah, I want to talk about Junior Colson," and
Yep.
circled back to you. So I think everyone knows that this kid, and he said he didn't want to talk too much about Junior Colson because he didn't want him to know how good he is, but
Right.
he's going to be a stud, man.
He is, and then Nikhai Hill Green's going to be good too. He's been hit and miss, but solid. To the point that Michael Barrett, who some people thought was going to be, gosh, this defense his importance to this defense is going to be huge, and he hasn't even played. He's been playing on special teams and on scout team at times. So, and there are other young guys behind them. Joey Velasquez, we've heard about, had a great spring game, for example. So, not spring game, but fall scrimmage recently. So there are guys there that really like the program, really love the program, and are invested in it. And it starts with Josh Ross and his leadership. But talking about those linebackers and then the running backs and talking about the running game, you can't overstate their importance and the patience they're showing, and Mike Hart's importance in that, Michigan's running backs coach, because this guy, you watch Blake Corum run and you watch Hassan Haskins run, and their vision and their patience and waiting for those holes to open, and even Donovan Edwards, a true freshman. These guys are finding spots to run when maybe the hole isn't where it's supposed to be. So it's really working in concert, and that's something that we haven't seen in a long time. And now Fitz Toussaint was solid. I thought he was really a product of the scheme as much as anything. When you have Denard Robinson there were some huge holes for him to run through, right? But as far as a full running back or full running game working together, I think these guys have been the best that I've seen in a long time.
And you turned to me, I think it was in the Washington game up in the press box, and said, "Man, I wonder how much of the run game struggles. We always talk so much about the offensive line, but how much was it? Maybe there's not a hole there, but now you have Blake Corum that can hit that hole, or Hassan Haskins, who's playing at the highest level he's ever played at. Maybe at times they just were starving for a running back that could make things happen when you can't rely on the offensive line to create a massive hole every play. But it's a perfect balance. There's no question the offensive line's playing great so far, and there's no question these running backs are fantastic so far. And I think we're going to see that continue to play out this season. Let's talk a little bit about this matchup with Rutgers here. It's an interesting one. They went to triple overtime last season. Before Michigan kind of dominated the series. Yeah, that was a weird night. They did need that win, though. I remember at the time saying, get out of there with a win because that season was a disaster. You needed that. I felt like that got things a little bit, settled. And then you play Penn State, which happened to be the last game of the year. Cade gets hurt and all that. But, this Rutgers team comes in as a 20.5-point underdog. They're on the ascent, but when you look at the fact that Michigan has improved so much, seemingly, it kind of puts it back in that category where this should be a pretty comfortable win. Where do you start here with the offense when, we talk about 25, 30 throws a game? Do you think it's going to come to that in this game? We know that Michigan's going to have to pass throughout the rest of the schedule. Do you think today is going to be one of those days?
Fair question. Who's the kid that said that they were going to stop Michigan's running game for Rutgers? I read in your opponent preview.
Yeah, so it was there. Yeah, there
Linebackers.
was. I think it was one of their linebackers, which is kind of the kiss of death with this team because Washington had a guy that did the same thing. I'm trying to think of the guy's name, but yeah, it was one of their linebackers earlier.
Yeah, and he's like, we need to stop their running game, and we're going to. And hats off for the confidence and so on and so forth. But providing a little bulletin board material there for the Michigan Michigan guys up front. So, and they're going to want to get off to a great start in the Big Ten season. You know, they're going to be frothing at the mouth here after that. But with their corners having been suspended, this is going to be a game where you need to exploit that. If you have any receiver play at all, and they should, Cornelius Johnson, Dalen Baldwin, I think, is going to be good. That little shimmy move that he made on the flat pass was eye opening to me. Okay, I didn't realize he had that kind of footwork. Now he's had a bad ankle, and we'd heard about him in the summer and then in the fall. This kid's going to be really good, and I think he is. But that was a move I didn't know that he could make. So I think he's going to have to come to play. They've got to scheme those slot receivers open a little bit better. AJ Henning, I want to see the ball. I want to see him have the ball in space, not just on a reverse or not on a punt return, but let's see what you can do with a little rub route here and get a running start because that kid's got electric speed. Same with Roman Wilson. We've heard about their speed, but we haven't really seen them use them as receivers in that sense, other than maybe the occasional fly pattern that hasn't connected. So that's what you want to see. And then on top of that, how are they going to have to throw 30 times? I don't think they have to, but I think you're going to see them throw more, and I think you're going to see them incorporate more of the playbook. You're going to see a lot of the playbook next week against Wisconsin because I think they really want to come out in that game and make a statement. But you do what you have to do in this game, Clay, and if you can grind out the yardage the way you have, then that's what you continue to do. And to me, I think you'll see a heavy dose of the run game. You'll see a little more play action off of it. This is a big game for Cade McNamara, as we talked about in our Inside the Fort. J.J. McCarthy's playing great football in practice, and that kid, everybody thinks is the future. It's not just us, it's people close to the team, and they are not discounting Cade McNamara. I want to make that clear. This kid busted his ass and worked his butt off in the summer, but J.J. McCarthy has the NFL tools, right? That's your prototypical NFL quarterback right there with a big arm, and the kid can move, and he's got moxie. So I think they'll open it up a little bit, but I'm thinking 20 to 25 times, Clay, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if JJ even gets in there this week.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned the cornerbacks being out. Max Melton is their, one of their starting quarterbacks, has 2 picks on the year. A paintball incident was the reason for it. He was taken into police custody or whatever per the statement on Tuesday. So he'll be out for Rutgers, you would assume. They didn't announce a timetable, but I've talked to 2 different guys who cover Rutgers, and they said nobody's expecting him or the backup, Chris Long, who has just played a few snaps this year, another freshman, to play.
Yeah, this is not a Mark D'Antonio team.
So. Right, where they're bailing him out the night before or whatever, allegedly.
Right. Allegedly.
Yeah, just to cover the ground. So, then it comes to the interesting point of, well, could they put in an extra linebacker? Because this is a team that likes to play nickel quite a bit and sell out to stop the run. Greg Schiano, with his DNA and his makeup, he's going to want to stop the run, right? And Jim Harbaugh, with his DNA and his makeup, is going to want to run the damn ball. So it's going to be an interesting, clash on clash. I think that Drew Singleton is a guy to watch that could play a little bit more. He rotates in, former Wolverine there for Rutgers as kind of their third linebacker. So there's been some talk about stacking the box. There's been some talk about moving a safety to corner, all sorts of things like that. So I think Michigan is in a pretty good spot to move the ball against the Rutgers defense that's pretty good. The secondary has been kind of the strength, but when you have some, missing pieces there, I don't think it's going to be just as easy. But it'll be interesting here. It's going to be another good test for Michigan's offense. I thought Washington's a good defense, and we'll see, what they can do against Rutgers. Before we move to Rutgers offense on Michigan's defense, we have a message from our sponsor, Manscaped. You see it in the top corner there. If you're watching on YouTube, use the promo code 20GoBlue to get 20% off and free shipping. Do you like playing with your balls? No, I'm not talking about footballs. I'm talking about your balls. Our friends at Manscaped, the global leaders in below-the-waist grooming, want you to shave your pubes with the Tom Brady of ball trimmers. That's a pretty good one there for us Michigan people here. The brand new Lawnmower 4.0, it's the GOAT technology for the greatest balls of all time. When you're going towards the end zone, make sure to use the right tools for your job and choose Manscaped. 2 million men worldwide trust them, so join the movement with our exclusive offer by using the promo code 20GoBlue at manscaped.com. 20% off and free shipping. Chris, the Lawnmower 4.0, what are your thoughts? if you can get through it.
I use it, and I love it. and it's worked really, really well for me. Let's put it that way. So it's funny because we laugh at the commercials and everything else, but it's a great product. It really is. I don't know who does their marketing, but it's working because we're selling a lot of these things, and to be completely honest, I do use it, and it's fantastic. The ball toner and the ball refresher, it's good stuff.
Yeah, it's funny to say, but it's kind of one of
It
those things.
is
I think that's why we're destigmatizing it.
right.
Where we're going to talk about it because it's a great product, and because they're a sponsor, and because so many people have come to us and said, "Hey, I'm glad you guys are advertising with them because I got one." And as you said, the proof is there with the amount of people that have bought it. So 20% off and free shipping using the promo code 20GOBLUE. That's 20GOBLUE. Once again, a great product. Can't say it enough. This Rutgers offense against Michigan's defense, it's going to be one of the better offenses they played. I think Western Michigan's probably a better unit, and you see the way they played against Pitt last week and were able to come out with a win. But it's not a very good offense, right? This is actually a bad offense. I don't want to sell them out, but somebody on the Rutgers side that I talked to this week said the offense is hot garbage. And, digging into some of the numbers, they can't do much. I mean, their run game, they have a good running back in Isaiah Pacheco. He's averaging 3.4 yards a carry. It's been a struggle to run the ball. The offensive line has been mix and match. They're rotating 3 tackles in at the 2 spots. So it's kind of like, hey, and Greg Schiano said it earlier this week in his press conference, we're trying to find the best 5 still, right? So where Michigan is pretty, strong on the offensive line and they know what they're trying to do and they know who's in there, Rutgers is still trying to figure that out. And then the pass game, listen to this stat. Noah Vidral, their starting quarterback, 66 of his 81 attempts have come either behind the line of scrimmage or within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage per PFF. So that means they're trying to get the ball out quickly, and he does, and distribute it to some of the playmakers they have on the outside. And that's where the tackling, I think, comes in for the secondary that you mentioned earlier. Has to be a little bit better this week because Bo Melton is a guy you have to watch. Aaron Cruikshank is a guy you have to watch. But it's going to be similar to Northern Illinois in that they're getting the ball out quick, and you got to rally to the football. That Michigan certainly was up to the task last week.
Northern Illinois and everybody else, and that's exactly what Harbaugh said. They're trying to get the ball out quickly. You got Aiden Hutchinson out there, who's just wreaking havoc, and then you got other pass rushers, David Ojabo. I think the linebackers have done a great job with their blitzing. Josh Ross getting home now. He's overrun it a couple of times. Larry Foote used to do that. That's before your time, but Larry Foote used to do the same thing, and then you just have to play in control. But Junior Colson's going to be a guy they can use in that role. Dax Hill, we've seen as a blitzer. But that plays right into this Michigan defense's hands, right? Keep everything in front of you. The way Dax Hill gets off blocks and just has been destroying those plays behind the line of scrimmage, that bodes well for Michigan. And not just him, but Vince Gray, I think, has done a pretty good job. He's missed a few tackles. His confidence, it's amazing, right? And he kind of said it. He said, when I'm not out there just playing press man and chasing somebody, I feel like I'm a pretty good football player. And I think that's probably true. So, and then DJ Turner coming along. So I like this group. I think with Brad Hawkins back there, he hasn't got enough talk. This guy has been outstanding in playing his role, getting everybody where they're supposed to be, and just steady Eddie back there. So I think you're going to see them try to run the ball a little bit more. I think you're going to see Michigan come out with they're going to probably show nickel, and I think Rutgers will probably show that they're going to go to that short passing game. Well, that's one thing when Northern Illinois had their success on their one drive. They showed pass, but they ran the ball against that front when Michigan only had a couple of big guys in there. So I'm expecting to see more of that from Rutgers, and we'll see how Mike McDonald adjusts to that because, again, this interior line – for as good as it's been, as solid as it's been, it really still hasn't been proven against a good running game. And we might not see that until next week, which would be fine with me. Get out of this homecoming game, a nice little 44-10 win or something like that would be great. So I think I predicted 31-13, whatever it is, make it a comfortable win. Look ahead to next week without having to show everything, because to me that next week is really the litmus test game, right, against Wisconsin. Nobody's looking past Rutgers, and Greg Schiano's a great coach. He was almost Michigan's coach, as a matter of fact, at one point. So, but to me, get through this game, get to next week, and let's see what you got.
Yeah, I think you're right in terms of, it's funny, we pick these games, and I'm always like, all right, I think they'll probably win pretty comfortably, and then it ends up being like double of what
Yeah.
The spread is and all that. So they're doing a good job in that respect. And so win comfortably is number one. First of all, the goal number one is to win. Goal number two is to win comfortably against a team like Rutgers. And goal number three is to get out of here healthy, maybe be able to rest the starters a little bit in the second half, as Michigan has been doing heading into Wisconsin. And when you start to think about that Wisconsin game, and I don't want to look ahead, but this is college football. There's a full season here. We know who they're going to play the next week. Wisconsin's playing Notre Dame today. I'm really interested to watch some of that game. And that's going to be a physical contest. Michigan, if they are able to get out of here healthy, rest some of the starters, they've been doing that for a few weeks. This should be a fresh team heading into Madison, and we'll talk about that next week depending on how things play out. But that is definitely something to watch here. Get out of here healthy. Speaking of the rest of the Big Ten, when we look around the conference, coming in, we have our set of expectations, and you start to watch the games, and you're able to kind of figure out who's a little bit better than we thought, who's a little bit worse. Penn State has surprised me a little bit. I knew their defense was going to be good, but they've been impressive. The way they went into Madison and won, the way they were able to handle Auburn as well. Wisconsin, still kind of a question mark. We'll see this weekend as well, though Notre Dame's not great. What are your kind of thoughts? And then Ohio State, a chink in the armor a little bit here. They're going to play a couple quarterbacks here. It looks like C.J. Stroud is hurt. The defense has been abysmal. They've switched coordinators. It feels like some turmoil that you'd see at other programs, but not Ohio State. And it's finally, the first challenge Ryan Day has had as the head coach, other than, just what play do I call for Justin Fields to throw to one of these four wide open receivers, right? So what are your thoughts on the Big Ten so far, specifically the Big Ten East and Wisconsin, Michigan's opponents, and what you've seen from them?
I expect Ohio State to get it together. They've got too much talent. I do think a little bit of panic there from Ryan Day, which is not a good sign for them. In terms of, because they have it's basically their season ends when they're out of the national championship hunt now, right? So one more loss and that's it for them. So maybe they are in a little bit of panic mode, but they've got too much talent to not improve. They've got good coaches. They'll figure it out on the defensive side of the ball. If not this year, then next. We've heard that Ryan Day has been talking to Greg Madison a lot. Maybe they'll get him out of retirement there, as Skeen calls him, Turncoat Madison.
Yeah, I was going to say, please address him properly, Turncoat Madison.
Yes.
On these airwaves. Yeah.
Yes. And but they'll get it together. They're still the team to beat in the East, and I still expect them to win it. Although Penn State, I'm not that surprised. You look more and more at that last year was kind of an anomaly for a lot of programs, and you've heard coaches say it. A Penn State home game with no crowd compared to what you saw last week is not college football. The same with Michigan against Michigan State or whatever. You've heard the Rutgers coach say it. You've heard Schiano say it. You've heard PJ Fleck say it. You've heard James Franklin say it. Jim Harbaugh hasn't said it because it was such an abysmal season last year and he didn't want to make excuses for it. But that was essentially a write-off season. It was a shortened season where you got guys coming in and out, you had guys sitting out. So that'll be an asterisk down the road. There's no question about it. When people look back at it and say, well, what the hell happened in the 2-4 season? People are going to say, oh, well, that was, COVID.
That's what I've been saying the whole damn time.
I know you have. But you still, the culture was garbage at times last year. And that needed to be fixed. So it was probably good that it happened last year, right? That the whole thing, if it was going to happen, not good that it happened, but it was good that it happened last year if it was going to happen, because now you've had a chance to address it, and here you are. And you've got everybody on the same page. The energy's great. The chemistry's great. So got to love it. Michigan State's better than expected because of the free agency thing. That's not college football either, and I don't care if it's Michigan State or whoever it is. When you go out and refill your roster with guys who can play right away, that's not college football, and that's not what it's meant to be. But give them credit; they've improved. They've improved at a lot of positions. Kenneth Walker's a great back, so it's been fun to watch. So interested to see how they do against Nebraska. Nebraska's not that good, but Big Ten season's another chance here, and they've got a chance to atone for that horrible Illinois loss that they suffered at the beginning of the year. So, but Maryland's okay, not great. We saw them against Illinois; they didn't look great. That should be a win. So, I still have Michigan at 8-4. I think that road schedule is going to be really, really tough for them, and then you still have Ohio State. So, I think a 4-4 finish in the Big Ten is probably where they're headed. I think you're probably a little higher than that at this point.
Yeah, I'm at 9-3, even though I had Washington as a win. I think this Michigan team has shown me enough to say they're going to win one of those toss-up games that I had them losing. And Indiana looks a little bit worse, even though I figured Michigan would be able to beat Indiana at home anyway, but Indiana looks worse. Michigan State is kind of taking the place of that Indiana as maybe the fourth team in the conference this year. So it's interesting. That's why they play the games. It's not all what the Cleveland.com preseason poll says, right? Teams can improve. And as you said, last season was just so tough to judge with so many things that were going on. Every program had something different. Now we're back to at least, more stable where it's like, okay, you got to run your program. It's all about football. And as Jim Harbaugh said at Big Ten Media Days, he's the football coach, not the COVID coach anymore, where you're dealing with so many other things. And still, again, no excuse for last season. But, it feels like we're, starting to figure out 3 weeks in a little bit more what these teams are going to be like. And, man, it's going to be fun here. As you kind of, I was going through last night the whole college football schedule, and there's still some, bad non-conference games. I think, who's Alabama playing? Somebody FCS or whatever. But as we get into week 4, 5, 6, we're going to see some better matchups, conference matchups, and it's going to be a lot of fun starting with Michigan, Wisconsin next week. So it'll be really, really good here going forward. Any final thoughts? Any quick Greg Schiano to Michigan talk before we head out?
Not anymore, but I tell you what, they tried to fire him in 2008. And it didn't work out. So we wrote this in our staff picks. They were this close, and they thought they had him. And when they found out they didn't, there were some white faces in that room, like, oh my God, what do we do now? And they'll deny it, but it's a fact. And his agent happened to be Rich Rodriguez's agent. One thing led to another. They met in Toledo. Rich Rodriguez got here, and they haven't won sniffed a Big Ten championship since, although Jim Harbaugh has come close. So it seems to me that this program's getting back on the right track in terms of the chemistry and what's expected here of Michigan men. And I think Mike Hart has a lot to do with that. I think that Ron Bellamy, those guys, but Jim Harbaugh more than anything. So he seems to have found his mojo, and he seems to be the old Jim Harbaugh in a lot of ways and seems to have that chip on his shoulder. That's who he needs to be for this program to be where you want it to go under him.
100%. Those are some great final words. We'll head out. Follow us at thewolverine.com. Pre-game, in-game, post-game, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Thewolverine.com.